Only on Fox, an age-old battle of predator and prey is leading some Arizona ranchers right to the nation's capital.
Fox 10's Nicole Christine takes a deeper look at the decision to put Mexican gray wolves on the protected species list and why it's putting cattle farmers across the Southwest in a difficult spot.
In 1998, the first captive wolves were released into the wild as part of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service's efforts to recover the species population. Now, nearly 30 years later, the Mexican gray wolf is at the center of a debate over conservation and depredation that spans from parts of the American Southwest all the way to our nation's capital.
Manuka.
Meet Manuka. She's a calf belonging to the Marks family, a ranching family based out of Blue, Arizona. This spring, the Marks found the calf in a dire state.
She had been bitten on top of the head by the wolves, and they actually crushed the top of her skull.
Manuka has made several trips to the vet.
You can see the stitches. We need to take the stitches out and then the drain tube.
And is considered a miracle to the Marks, as her survival is rare.
Oh, sis, what are you doing? Manuka is the lucky one. We had so many head-bitten calves that they either died. I had one die in my living room. It was gut-wrenching.
While the Marks ranching land covers nearly 140,000 acres between allotments and leases, the family only has a total head count of around 300 bovine. They say every bull, cow, or calf lost to a wolf hits hard. Nearby ranchers Douglas and Dennis Stacy say they've also experienced livestock depredation, with each calf killed taking away a potential future sale of close to $2,000, according to Stacy, based on current market price.
When you start losing several calves a year that could have, helped pay for diesel fuel and kept all the things that go into ranching up here, it starts hitting you in the pocketbook.
The ranching families are seeking solutions from groups like the Arizona Game and Fish Department and individuals like Jim DeVos, who has dedicated his career to species like the Mexican gray wolf.
They belong here. They were here. Human intervention took them off the landscape to where we only had wolves in captivity.
DeVos says Southwest settlers in the late 1800s lacked what he refers to as ecological ethics.
It was economy, and people didn't understand the consequences of eradicating a species. It's about the time when some of the environmental scientists started to recognize the importance of individual species.
Fast forward to the 1970s, and 7 wolves were captured to start a captive breeding program. To manage genetics and protect future generations, Game and Fish works with organizations like Save Animals from Extinction and the Southwest Wildlife Conservation Center in Scottsdale. Staff there say they battle a widespread misunderstanding about wolves.
People think of them as these big, bad, vicious things, and they're just really not. They're very family-oriented. As we already know, they're pack animals, and they are just trying to make a living just like we are, and especially out in the wild, they are raising their families. They're just trying to do the best they can, just kind of like humans, but, in the animal world.
Kim Carr says eliminating the wolf population from parts of Arizona could be detrimental to the overall ecosystem here.
When you get rid of a predator or anything in the environment, it affects everything below it. Wolves being apex predators, top predators, they're going to keep the deer and the elk in line. I know people say, why does that matter? But you think about what deer and elk eat, and they're eating young saplings, and they're eating a lot of vegetation.
Some ranchers say the wolves are making it hard for them to avoid other local predators.
Just the mere presence, though, of the wolves puts pressure on the lions, bears, coyotes, and because they're taking prey that those animals would eat.
The less game there is, and with the cow numbers that we have, the more depredation we're going to see.
The ranchers say local reps from Game and Fish and Wildlife Services are amazing to work with.
But then you start getting into the Fish and Wildlife Service and that upper ranks, and the communication's not there. They're not on the ground. They don't see what's going on.
It's not just eastern Arizona ranchers dealing with depredation. In May, a mated wolf pair and their pups were moved from Cochise County and taken to New Mexico after reports of killings by wolves. DeVos says this was partially due to the drought in Arizona and a lack of natural prey.
They were not behaving in an acceptable fashion. They were at risk to meet their demise, whether it's from lack of prey or other factors. And so, again, it was an ethical decision that was really very, very simple to make.
But as more cases are reported, the debate over these wolves is reaching Washington, with Arizona Congressman Paul Gosar penning legislation aiming to delist the Mexican wolf from the Endangered Species Act. Arizona conservation leaders say before that step is taken, they want the chance to find solutions.
We come into this knowing that there's two sides of everything. There's the protection of the wolves, but there's also the protection of people's livelihood.
But can the two coexist long term?
It's forced coexistence. We didn't ask for them. And, there's got to be something. I mean, my life is literally consumed by wolves.
Nicole Corsine, Fox 10 News.
So that's the central question. Can the wolves and the ranchers coexist? Coming up tonight at 10, Nicole will take that question to those on both sides of the issue. That's tonight at 10:30.
New at 10:30, we're continuing to dive into the debate over conservation versus industry in the Arizona wilderness.
And Fox 10's Nicole Corsine has part 2 of a special report on the fight to save the Mexican gray wolf and how that fight is affecting cattle ranches across the Southwest, including right here in Arizona.
The Mexican gray wolf population has been surpassing recovery goals in the United States in recent years, leaving room for those who are against the federal protection of the species to try to get it removed from the endangered species list. So the question remains, is there any common ground to be found between predator and prey?
I hate to say it, but I'd like nothing more than the money be pulled in defunding this program.
That's Eastern Arizona rancher Douglas Stacy, who manages a family-owned ranch with his twin brother Dennis and some other relatives. He says livestock depredation has created this staunch take on the recovery of Arizona's Mexican gray wolf population. Jim DeVos, Arizona Game and Fish Department's coordinator for the Mexican gray wolf, believes conservationists and ranchers can find a system that works.
Many of the ranchers may not like wolves, but if we can get to the point that we have what I call balance and a shared land ethic to where we can have wolves, we can have livestock industry, we can have a 100-year trajectory of wolf population establishment.
But how can that be done? There's currently a compensation program for ranchers through the independent Arizona Livestock Loss Board.
In the last 5 years, the Livestock Loss Board has made compensation payments totaling just a little bit north of $1 million to the livestock industry.
Ranchers like Stacy say the payback process is arduous.
A full compensation if you have a remains of a calf and if you find the calf, and then it has to be verified that it was wolf kill.
And in areas like Blue Arizona, ranchers say that can be nearly impossible.
You kind of have to learn your way around, and you better have a horse that's good in the rocks. You can't be with every cow 24 hours a day in this country. It's impossible.
You saw how rough and rugged this country is. You don't find the animals. And so, there again, no body, no crime.
DeVos says there are discussions about implementing a pay-for-presence program. The issue is funding.
To pay direct compensation, we get in about $100,000 a year, and then we get some that they call for conflict avoidance, and that's about another $100,000. All told, that's about $200,000. That's just simply not enough for this pay for presence.
Another way Game and Fish is working to reduce conflict is by introducing 2 full-time range riders who spend their days locating wolves within cattle populations and trying to haze them out of that area.
Some of the things that they use, scare tactics basically, which is boar thunder, cracker rounds that are shot out of shotguns, and that scares wolves out of the area to try to get them moving and have a little bit of fear of people and of cattle.
Some ranchers say those tactics are not effective enough.
The range riders do okay on the mountain, in our mountain country, because there's roads. So the range rider is kind of a little bit of a humorous thing in itself, because they don't ride horses, and so down here they have to hike, and you can see how it is. The range rider does not work down here.
The Marks praise the local reps from Game and Fish and Wildlife Services and believe funding needs to be funneled to those working on the ground in states like Arizona.
Every single one of these endangered species, they have forced them on these states, and the states need that funding.
Game and Fish says that funding comes with more wolves.
As wolves get downlisted from endangered to threatened, some more autonomy comes to the states for us to be able to have more room for management. And then when they get delisted, then it really opens up our ability to manage it the same as we would bears, mountain lions, and work with the ranchers even more.
But key metrics aren't there yet.
And we're at as a total population, 286 known wolves at a minimum between New Mexico and Arizona, and we've got to hit that 320, and that's got to be a 4-year average.
And that average number has to last over a span of 8 years. Arizona Congressman Paul Gosar doesn't want to wait for that and has penned legislation to delist Mexican wolves from the endangered species list. Ginger Cheney, who recently made a trip to Washington, D.C. to discuss the issue, says Gosar's House resolution is a sign that lawmakers are listening.
And I know Washington doesn't work like how we would like it to work, but it feels like there's hope.
But what brings hope for one group could take away the progress people like DeVos have made to bring back a species almost lost forever.
People that I hear from say, wow, I saw a wolf. That was a really cool experience. Or, wow, I heard wolf howl when I was up at Luna Lake. And so I think the fact that we want them here, but we want them in a measured fashion and with safeguards for the ranching community, I think that is really what the most important take-home message is.
Nicole Christine, Fox 10 News.